Hey, Lawrence.
Sir.
One bit of old business. I was able to order the 18 pins using my own credit card.
Okay.
There's a problem with whatever credit card JR has, and I think that's what prevented him from ordering it. And he also informed me that he doesn't have any checks. So if there's any way you can help him out and help him to get organized and
Oh, I guess we would have to go to the bank and see if they can issue us some. I don't know if it's even a checking account. I'll have to look and see what it is and find out and go in there and see what we can come up with. Okay, thank you.
It's got a Mount Vernon address on the credit card, so we need to get that changed as well.
Oh, okay, that's,
Constance was supposed to look that way.
that must be Constance's address. So I guess we need to change that to the same address as our club, which I guess is Julius's address. Is that correct? Isn't that what we got, isn't that what we're,
Last time, right?
that's what, yeah. Seems to me that's what our club address is right now, is Julius's address. He seems to be the keeper of the keys.
Right, right.
The Keymeister. All right, is there any other business we want to bring forward at this time? All right, well, let us then proceed to our first speaker of this evening, our only speaker for this evening, which means we'll have plenty of time to do table topics. Our speaker this evening is Maurice Heidelberg, sorry. Become a better Toastmaster, or become Toast is the name of his speech. Maurice Heidelberg.
Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I am here today to present a speech that is sort of a continuation of a previous speech that I gave several months ago, entitled Methods of Better Word Usage. In this speech, I will give a few hints and tips on how to become a better speaker and how to increase your word power. I will also give tips on how to gain more confidence in giving speeches, especially to those who are reluctant or more reluctant to give speeches at all. The title of this speech is Become a Toastmaster or Become Toast. This speech is structured for almost any person who wants to be a better speaker, and not just those who lack greatly in confidence, whether they are a small child, a teenager, a young adult, or a senior citizen. The tips also apply to myself, and it's not just I directing this to other people, as I also have a number of improvements to make as a public speaker. The following is a contrast of two potentially great speakers. On my left, or your right, this potentially great speaker is brimming with confidence, uses decent eye contact, has a strong voice that varies in tone, and knows how to structure the topic to keep the attention of the audience. On my right, or your left, this potentially great speaker is greatly lacking in confidence, uses poor eye contact, is programmed to use as low a voice as possible when speaking in front of others, and is prone to stage fright to the point where they freeze when they get behind a lectern. I have done this myself during my senior year in high school when I spoke in front of a junior high school audience. Just as the body needs physical exercise to stay in shape, in order to become a better speaker, there are several mental muscles that need to be exercised in order to gain and maintain sharpness. One type of mental exercise is a workout of your reading muscles. Reading helps promote comprehension and a stronger and more diverse vocabulary. Reading aloud to oneself also helps to exercise the vocal muscles. It allows one to speak out on several sentences or paragraphs for extended periods of time by having the words in front of them to say. Assuming that the reading material is grammatically correct, one can also exercise their grammar muscles. One caveat to reading aloud to oneself is that it's possible for one to train themselves to just read speeches and become a monotone speaker. Another type of mental exercise one can perform is one where you have a small audience of about 5 people and look each one of them in the eye. This will stimulate or simulate a speaker looking at different people in the audience while speaking. Vocal exercises can also be used for a speaker to practice the characteristics of a good voice as outlined in Project 6 of the Confident Communicator Manual. Those characteristics are volume, pitch, rate, and quality. The speaker can also practice on emphasis, breath, and pauses. During the course of using vocal exercises, one can also improve upon being expressive in their speech. The most important mental exercise and physical exercise for a potential speaker or Toastmaster in order to become a better speaker is to actually step out and actually put yourself behind the lectern and perform speeches. That way, the person will be able to surpass hurdles that they have in their speech training just by coming up front and attempting the speech will go a long way in building one's confidence. On many occasions, the worst step in one's journey is the first step. Once a person steps to the other side of a major hurdle in one's journey, they gain a whole new perspective and can move forward in making improvements in anything that they desire to do. Moving forward and becoming a better speaker can be likened to asking someone you are starstruck with on a date or asking someone if you can borrow a large sum of money. One may tell you that the worst thing that can happen is that the other person will say no. You may respond to that advisor and ask, what if the person responds with, how dare you ever conjure up the audacity to ask such a stupid question, you low-life, no-good loser? My response to that is, you will gain something from that, even though it may seem a devastating loss or a setback. So the tips that were outlined in tonight's speech can propel anyone forward on their journey to become a better speaker. In conclusion, the mental exercises listed are good stepping stones in helping someone to become a better speaker. Now, a word on the title of the speech, become a Toastmaster or become toast. The title does not necessarily imply mutually exclusive options between the two. The most important thing in achieving anything that's worth achieving is to take the first step, because often the worst step is the first step. You may not become invincible as a result, but you will certainly take one step toward becoming invincible. Toastmaster.
Very, very interesting. I really like that. It gives us a lot of information, a lot of opportunity to be able to understand a little bit more about what it means to be a Toastmaster and get up in front of an audience and speak. Now, we don't have a second speaker, but I do have one thing that I would like to do before we start table topics. I have been asked by my voice coach to do a little talk in front of a group. Basically just do a presentation of a couple of paragraphs from King Arthur and the Round Table. And so what I want to do is, if you guys will be kind of a backboard to it, I'm going to actually be reading it with some emphasis in vocal variety and so on. And then later on, after I get it all memorized and get it more focused, I'm going to give it to you again, and hopefully you'll be able to see some bit of difference. And seeing as we have some extra time this evening, I figured I'd try this. This is a section from King Arthur and the Round Table. King Arthur has just fallen out of a tree after seeing Guinevere for his first time. He says to her, "When I was a lad of 18, our king died in London and left no one to succeed him. Only a sword stuck through an anvil which stood on a stone. Written on it in letters on gold, it said, 'Whoso pull out this sword of this stone and anvil is rightwise king born of all England.' Many chaps tried to dislodge it, and none could. Finally, a great tournament was proclaimed for New Year's Day, so that all the mightiest knights in England would be assembled at one time to have a go at the sword. I went to London as a squire with my cousin, Sir Kay. The morning of the tournament, Kay discovered that he had left his sword at home and gave me a shilling to ride back and fetch it. On my way through London, I passed a square and saw there a sword rising from a stone. Not thinking very quickly, I thought it must be a war memorial. The square was deserted, so I decided I might save myself a journey and borrow it. I tried to pull it out. I failed. I tried again. I failed again. Then I closed my eyes, and with all my force, I tried one last time. Oh, it moved. Then slowly it slid out of the stone. I heard a great roar. When I opened my eyes, the square was filled with people shouting, "Long live the king! Long live the king!" Then I looked at the sword and saw the blade gleaming with letters of gold. That's how I became king. I never knew I would be. I never wanted to be. And since I am, I have been ill at ease in my crown. Until I dropped from the tree and my eyes beheld you. Then suddenly, for the first time, I felt I was king. I was glad to be king. And most astonishing of all, I wanted to be the wisest, most heroic, most splendid king who ever sat on a throne. If you come with me, milady, I'll arrange for a carriage to return you to your father. All right. For the next section, can I have the envelope, please? We're all going to get an opportunity to have a topic of the day. And seeing as our meeting theme is teenagers, I thought, well, what do we have for teenagers? And then I thought, this is a week of very special events. And so I thought maybe I could touch on a few of those. The first of which is May Day. Now, May Day, as some of you might know, originally started as a festival of flowers, because in May is when some of the flowers start coming out. And so that was what it originally was started as in olden Roman times. And then, of course, it spread throughout all of Europe and eventually to the United States. Now, in the United States, they very often danced around a maypole back in days of old. So, Julius, do you think in our modern times that it would be good if our teenagers could get excited about a May Day celebration and dancing around the maypole?
I'm fellow Toastmasters. I think it's good for teenagers to get excited. I think it's good for teenagers to get excited about anything, because a lot of times people just become so humdrum about a lot of things. Nothing really excites them. So if they can get excited about, something besides the things that they're so engaged in, like their Facebook, Twitter, things of that nature, things that kind of connect them with other folks, but at the same time keeps them distant from other people. But if they can all just get around a flag and show some solidarity for the flag or the flagpole, then I think it would be a great idea. And I'm looking forward to participating in those activities, because when I see kids and their youthfulness and their vigor, it just kind of brings that same kind of feeling out of me. I feel it's good to be around kids. When you're around kids, you feel younger, you're more motivated, you see the joy, you see the excitement in their eyes, and that's what I want to do.
Thank you, Julius. That was very good. That was very good. Well, I think that a lot of what you find on Facebook and those other social medias are a lot of histrionics. And I think that that is one of the things that our young people would be good for them to get away from. Well, May Day is also celebrated in other ways. The pagans used to have May Day celebrations where they had festivals and they celebrated the sun and nature itself, and had wonderful experiences doing that. Miss Lois, do you think that our young people today would be more inclined to celebrate if it was a celebration of nature and not just a dance around the pole? Or maybe I should say a pole dance.
We have one.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. Do I think that, I'm going to paraphrase, it would be beneficial for our youth to celebrate a May Day if in fact the celebration was surrounding nature? Is that accurate?
Correct.
I think it would be beneficial for our youth to celebrate nature, and if I could make a recommendation on what part of nature or what natural area I'd like to have them celebrate, I'd say the Grand Canyon. What better sight than the Grand Canyon? I'm not sure if anybody here has actually seen it, but I will tell you, the word grand is very appropriate. There's no other word. It's a beautiful sight. And I would think that it would be hard for anyone, whoever laid eyes on it, not to want to celebrate in that particular fashion. So certainly the Grand Canyon and celebration, May or any of the other months of the year, would certainly be appropriate. If it were me, I might be a little bit theatric or histrionics. I may display histrionics, I think. By the way, that word actually is a noun. I may have neglected to mention that. But at any rate, in terms of the celebration of a May Day for children or our youth, and whether it would be beneficial for them to celebrate that particular May Day surrounding nature, not only would I think it would be beneficial, I would highly encourage it. And yes, I would love nothing more than to see them celebrate the Grand Canyon as part of it. Thank you. Somebody counted my odds.
Well, on the same level of making a natural celebration, another very prominent celebration that's coming up this week, actually coming up on Saturday, is World Nude Gardening Day. Mark, do you think that it would be wise to take a natural celebration of May Day and kind of combine it with a World Nude Gardening Day? Mark,
I just heard about Worldwide National Nude Gardening Day this morning. It was showing up, I think it showed up on Twitter. When I tried to follow the link, I got a message that they had, that the site that was sponsoring the Nude Gardening Day had gotten a year's worth of traffic in one day. So their site was shut down. So I couldn't find out
Wow.
what are the details
Wow.
of Nude Gardening Day. It sounds like a risky proposition, especially in Mobile. Mosquitoes. Yeah, poison ivy. And sticker bushes. So I don't think in Mobile celebrate with gardening. Thank you.
okay, thank you.
Got the visual.
Okay, Maurice, I'm going to let you do a table topics also.
All right.
And then we'll do another round because we do have an extra minute or two in our program. So, May Day also has a darker side, or at least for some people. And that is that May Day was picked up by the socialists and the communists as the International Workers' Day. And there were many riots in the 60s and 70s on May Day in protest to government and whatever on what became known as May Day riots. So do you think that May Day should be celebrated as a celebration of flowers, or do you think it would be better to be a celebration of international workers? Mr. Morgan.
Keeping with the theme of teenagers, I would think, in my opinion, that the celebration of May Day should go toward the celebration of flowers rather than celebration of international workers. And to add to that, in order to get teenagers to participate in May Day activities, I would recommend a social media blackout for the day. The teenagers may end up participating in histrionics, but it would get them more apt to participate in May Day if there was a social media blackout that day. So, in conclusion, I would rather have it May Day to be a celebration of flowers rather than International Workers' Day, even though there'll be a riot if a social media blackout was instituted for the purpose of them participating. Toastmasters.
All right. Okay. We're going to make one more round, and we're going to change it a little bit. There's a couple of other celebrations going on this week, one of which is May the 4th be with you, the International Celebration of Star Wars. Julius, Star Wars has become such a huge thing. Do you think that Star Wars has become more commercialized than it was in the beginning, or is it still a highly exciting and thrilling program that they're continuing to show in the movie theaters?
Mr. Toastmaster, my fellow Toastmasters, my feeling is, I think that in the beginning, it was about celebrating Captain Kirk, Spock, Zulu, and those guys, and it just has grown from that point to people just becoming enamored with Star Wars, that they just wanted to have their own groupies, have their own language. I'm really impressed with how expansive it has become from where it started from to where it is now. It just seems to continue to grow. Trekkies, this is great. I love it because I was an original lover of Captain Kirk. I like Spock. And Spock was just a guy that I wanted to emulate. Just very intelligent. At times could show just a little bit of emotion, just very seldom. But his brilliance was something I really liked. Captain Kirk, because he always got all the girls. Green girls, purple girls, Chinese girls. This guy was Captain Kirk. But I enjoy it. I love it.
How we move that around. And by the way, for just a little bit of trivia, for our people of African descent, the first racial kiss on TV was on Star Wars when Captain Kirk kissed a black female. And that was the first time anything like that happened on TV. A white and a black.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Yeah, Star Trek. You jump back to Star Trek from Star Wars. But because you're on that, we'll go there.
Got it, okay.
Yeah, so in a land far away, a long, long time ago, and that's when Star Trek became, and then eventually Star Wars and so on. But another celebration we're going to be doing this week is Cinco de Mayo. Cinco de Mayo is actually supposed to be a festival based on the Mexicans after the French went into a village and slaughtered everybody trying to take over parts of Mexico. The Mexican people were able to go back in and defeat the French. Miss Lois, do you think that this has got any bearing on our modern celebrations of Cinco de Mayo in the United States?
Thank you, Topic Master. Do I think that our modern day celebration in the United States of the holiday Cinco de Mayo has anything to do with the historic place from which it began? I don't know for certain, but if I had to guess, I would say certainly there has to be some remnants of the historic piece in today's celebration. I don't necessarily remember ever hearing that piece of, I'm gonna say, trivia or a history lesson previously. I'm glad that you brought it to our attention. I'm not really sure how it's celebrated, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm just, again, taking an educated guess that in all of our celebrations, if there's ever any type of history that's attached to it, somewhere underneath the layers, there's always, again, some remnants of that particular history. So it just seemed to me that it makes perfect sense that the same would be the case with Cinco de Mayo. I love any holiday where you get an opportunity to drink a little more alcoholic beverages. It's all good to me. So why not? And with that, I'll return the lectern, or I'll relinquish the lectern back to you, Topic Master.
Okay, I guess we got time for one final. Originally, Cinco de Mayo, in our modern incarnation, Cinco de Mayo was brought to the United States by a young lady from Mexico who inherited her father's little local brewery. And she decided that in order to increase her sales of Corona beer, that she could increase her market in the United States. And how would be the best way to do that? Create a celebration about Mexico and advertise it based on Corona. And that became what we now have as Cinco de Mayo, a celebration of Mexican beer. Now, there is this week on Cinco de Mayo, there is going to be the most interesting man in the world. His cutout is going to be in Mobile for the celebration of Cinco de Mayo. And of course, he doesn't always drink beer, but when he does, he drinks Dos Equis. So I'm wondering, did Dos Equis take over Cinco de Mayo? Mark?
Dos
What is it?
Dos Equis.
Equus. E-Q-I-U-S.
He doesn't drink it, so he
Dos Equis.
Dos Equis.
Well, my favorite meme with the most interesting man in the world is one where he talks about computer software. And believe it or not, the most interesting when he does, he tests in production. It's interesting in the world, and his software will not have any bugs. We actually got a request from one of our programmers last week to start programming in the production environment. And he was furiously requesting this. And it was hard not to laugh. Anybody that's done any programming knows that there's always going to be bugs in your software, and you don't test in production. Unless you're looking at
Oh. All right, thank you. All right, that is the end of our table topics. And now we will go into our evaluation process, or portion of our program. And I'd like to invite up our general evaluator, Mr. Julius.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. We'll start with the general evaluation. The meeting started on time. Took us a 5-minute recess to see if anyone else would be joining us tonight. We resumed and carried on with the meeting. We had a good speech by Maurice. Maurice gave us a lot of history with his table topics. I didn't know there was so much to know about the month of May. Good information. And now I'll start with the evaluation of Maurice's speech. This is Maurice's sixth speech. This particular topic was vocal variety. And the objective of the speech was use voice, volume, pitch, rate, and quality to reflect and add meaning and interest to the message. Use pauses to enhance the message. Use vocal variety smoothly and naturally. I'm just going to go down a list of markers. Volume, I said excellent volume. The rate was excellent. Pitch, varied and conversational. Quality, pleasant and friendly. Pauses, appropriate and effective. Expressive, conveyed emotion and meaning. You seem to be really involved in it. Vocal variety. Again, high marks on vocal variety. Organization speech was well organized. Word usage, be satisfactory on word usage. Body language, natural and expressive. Now, what could the speaker have done differently to make the speech more effective? I said rely less on notes. Use single gestures as opposed to double gestures.
Oh,
So
okay.
they say when you use like double gestures, it makes you look like a robot. Whereas you just do a single gesture, it makes it more natural.
All right.
Okay, what did you like about the speech? I like your histrionics. You gave us a little bit of acting on this particular person and this guy who was really well prepared versus someone who was a novice. And you did a good job on that. I enjoyed your speech. The more you speak, it seems to be the more you're becoming more polished. And like you said, step out and continue to step out, and you continue to get better. I enjoyed this speech. Look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you.
Okay. Now at this time, we will have a timers report by Lawrence.
No, Mark.
Mark with the timers report.
Okay, so our speaker tonight was a 5 to 7 minutes. Maurice spoke 7 minutes and 34 seconds.
Ooh.
We had tabletop. Maurice spoke for 1 minute 30 seconds. Julius spoke for 1 minute 10 seconds and 1 minute 19 seconds. Lois spoke for 1 minute 49 seconds, 1 minute 24 seconds. I spoke for 1 minute 17 seconds and 1 minute 34 seconds. And so everybody was within the time frame of their table topics and speeches. You got started on Maurice's evaluation before I could start the clock, so I only have 1 minute and 38 seconds, but again, I started the clock a little bit late, because I didn't know didn't recognize that you'd transitioned into
Right.
his evaluation.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Now we'll have a grammarian's report by Lois.
Do you need to come in?
I need this stand.
Okay, right. Okay, and I didn't necessarily give you guys earlier the role of the grammarian, so now's as good a time as any for me to go ahead and just incorporate that. The role of the grammarian is to comment on the positive and negative uses of English during the meeting, and to introduce a new word and explain the correct use of that particular word, and to count the use of the crutches such as and And what I have so far is Maurice, I didn't hear you say which is really good. I'm very proud of you for not doing that. if I had to offer you any constructive criticism, I would simply say I'd like to hear you enunciate a little bit more, especially on words like months, when you have to put the S at the end of month. I have that same issue. That's why it's easy for me to recognize that. And then also when you use the word exercise, if you don't really over enunciate, it's going to sound a lot like exercise.
Oh,
So I
okay.
just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay.
I do love the fact that you do enunciate and you can hear each and every syllable each time you use the word comprehension as well as the word lecture. I did not hear you say ah, as I indicated earlier. Lawrence, I recorded 8 ahs. Julius, I recorded 5 ahs. I hope somebody listened to me to record my own because I totally forgot to do that. And I didn't hear any uses of the words with Mark. Julius, I think I already told you what yours were. And then the word of the day was used by every person, Maurice, Lawrence, Lois, and Julius, with the exception of Mark. I'm sorry, Mark, if you used it, I didn't hear it.
I didn't either.
And that would conclude the mayor's
Okay,
report.
thank you for your report. It's always good to have somebody keeping you accountable. Great.
I didn't hear you say oh on the second tabletop.
I did say,
Oh, you did?
no, I'm asking, did I?
No, I didn't hear you on the second one. I only tried to pay attention on the second one. I missed it on the first table topic.
I may have. Did you hear it? Did I say it? Or ers?
I didn't
It
notice.
wasn't noticed.
You did, I didn't notice it.
That means I got away with it, yay.
That concludes the evaluation portion of the meeting. Return the lecture back to the Toastmasters.
Thank you. All right, very good meeting. I really enjoyed the meeting. I enjoyed our speech this evening and all of the table topics. I think you guys really came up and did a very good job with that. So I'm glad of that. The one thing that I would say, kind of similar to what he said, was body language.
Okay.
When you're up here and it's like your hands were never stop moving.
Okay. Warning, warning, warning,
Yes,
warning.
yeah.
Air traffic controller.
Which probably was before Star Trek. Lost in space.
Yeah.
What I would recommend, what my voice teacher recommended to me,
Okay.
was try to just let your hands lay relaxed on the side of your hips.
Okay.
And if you lightly push them on your hips, then when you're learning, if you lightly push them on your hips, it reminds you that your hands are there. And then from Toastmasters' perspective, when you want to emphasize something, then you bring your hands out and it emphasizes it. That way, it's obvious to people that you are emphasizing something,
Okay.
because you're not constantly, and then you're always behind the thing, and you're doing this and you're doing that, and like you said, it does get to be Mr. Robotic.
Okay. Or duct tape.
Yeah, but if you just, what she told me was just kind of hold your arms, relaxed at your side, just kind of push your palm, the bottom of your palm into your legs, just a little bit. Real light, not like, stressed,
right.
but just real light, just enough so you can feel it.
Okay.
And then you'll remember that that's where your hands are supposed to be. And then when you want to make a point, you can bring your hands up and make a point and bring them back down. Which is my problem when I'm singing. I'm always doing the same thing. And so I need to do that. All right, so that's the end of the meeting. I'm going to turn it back over to the president. And I'm here. So is there anything anybody else wants to bring forward for the good of the club? Mark, what do we have for next week?
Next week, Joyous is our Toastmaster. Hedrick is table topics. Our general evaluator will be Maurice. Luke Green is scheduled to give a speech.
Pocket speeches.
Every time I schedule him for a speech lately, he seems to cancel out, so.
Yeah, I saw him this past, I think I saw him this past week, and he said he was not gonna be here for the next few weeks.
Okay, yeah, if somebody's not gonna be here, if they know they're not gonna be here, if they'll go in and go into Easy Speak and decline the meeting, then I won't schedule them for anything. But it,
Okay, was there a second speaker?
JR is scheduled to give a speech, and Lois is our reserve speaker. I believe I've got you scheduled for the following week.
All right, I won't be here next week, so if Julius, if you'll take over as president for the next 2 weeks, or take the place of the president and open the meetings for me, I would appreciate that. I'm going to be out of town for the next 2 weeks.
Where you headed?
Hmm?
Where you gonna be?
Paris,
Paris.
and then
Nice.
Strasbourg.
Okay.
So, going off to the off to the old country. So, gonna go visit my son who's now living in Paris, and then my wife's parents, or her family who's living in the eastern portion of France.
Your son who came here that one time for the meeting?
No, the next older one.
Well, speaking of Paris and France and Cinco de Mayo, imagine if the French had won that war.
Yeah, we would have French relatives in the south instead of Spanish.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else that anyone would like to bring forward for the good of the meeting? Going once, going twice, sold to the night. Enjoy your evening.
I have a